First of all, there's an increase in the demand for food. That's going to be up by about 50% by 2030. The increase in the demand for energy is going to be up by a similar amount. And the demand for fresh water, which is really very important, is going to be up by something like 30 or 40%. At the same time, there are real problems that we can't just ignore the issue of climate change. So increasing the supply of food, energy and water has got to be done at the same time without presenting problems for mitigating greenhouse gas emissions to address the climate change problem. And all that's happening in 21 years.
Yes, I mean, you've been fairly precise on this date, by 2030. Does that imply that actually there's nothing we can do about it?
No, not at all. And if indeed the reason for actually raising this issue now is that now is the time to actually think very seriously about how we actually address this combination of problems. And I emphasise the combination because they really have got to be addressed in combination. You can't address a food security issue if you ignore water or climate change. Similarly, you can't address the problems of climate change if you ignore the fact that the world needs to feed itself and actually have energy supplies. The reason for it coming out now is that if we are going to use science and technology to address some of these problems, we're going to need to get that science and technology in place well in time to actually address the issues.
A recession is a time when people take their eye off the ball. Climate change has been the thing that everybody's been talking about until now. Do you sense that also our European partners are not perhaps taking this as seriously as we are here? Some of them don't even have a chief scientific advisor.
Well, I think there's two questions really you've posed. The first one is about climate change, and I think the world community is taking that very seriously. You know, the major meeting is coming in Copenhagen at the end of the year. So I think that climate change is very high up the agenda. Similarly, I think food security is up the agenda, and needs to be. But I think that the problem of water security, I think, has really not been addressed properly. Now, in terms of actually scientific advice, I think one of the things, is that this is a very gloomy picture. We've got tremendous problems. But I think the key thing is to actually recognise we've got those problems. And I think what President Obama has done in the USA since coming to power is extraordinary in terms of the importance he's actually placed on science. He's got 3 very, very senior scientific advisors, with John Holdren leading it, and Harold Varmus and Eric Lander on his President's Advisory Council. And he's appointed Stephen Chu, who's a Nobel Prize winner, and Jane Lubchenco to run the Department of Energy, and Jane Lubchenco to run the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, a very senior scientist. In fact, she's a fellow of the Royal Society of the UK. Now, that's in stark contrast, actually, to the scientific advice and input that the European Commission gets. There is no chief scientific advisor to the Commissioner, and there, in fact, within member states, only the UK and Ireland has a chief scientific advisor. So I think this is potentially problematic, and I think that one of the reasons that I've raised this, and I wrote an article about it last week, is to say, look, we do need to have independent scientific advice. The Obama team in the White House has actually shown the way, and Europe needs to think seriously about how it can actually get independent scientific advice to help it take policy decisions.
John, if countries do nothing, just describe the world in 2030 just after this perfect storm has hit, then.
Well, it's going to happen in the run-up to 2030. You suddenly don't get a jump in demand and so on. But let's think about 2030. Food demand up by 50%. If we haven't actually met that increase in food supply, we're going to get significant problems of food shortage, significant increases in price, potential very high volatility because you don't have sufficient reserves. Last year, the food price witnesses increased by about 300% in a few months, with the concomitant destabilization of a number of countries. That's in food. In terms of water, significant shortage of water means that populations will be under pressure both by water shortage and food, and you'll have big potential for increases in international migration, but in areas where there is significant shortages of both food and water. If you don't address the issue of energy, again, increasing energy demand, again, that demand for energy will mean that the prices for energy products will increase, and what we'll therefore be seeing is a very serious increase across these central commodities, and that within corresponding the effects will be greatest on the poor within countries and in the world as a whole. So that, if it was not enough, is in fact also going to be occurring when some of the climate change scenarios are going to start happening. You know, there's melting of tropical glaciers as we speak. There's significant decrease in the Arctic ice cover. So these are all coming together. Indeed, I was at a scientific meeting at the Royal Society only yesterday, in which a prediction was that the Arctic might be free of ice in the summer of 2030.